tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AfterBuzz After Show for Masters of Sex, Season 3, Episode 10, Through a Glass Darkly. I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Miss Adrian Snow. That's MSADRIANSNOW. And my co-host here.
Hi, guys. My name is Quinn Scillian. You can find me on Twitter at Quinn Scillian.
Yes, and as always, please subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, other places you can subscribe to things. Follow us on Twitter. Yeah. We love to hear from you all as well. So, sorry, I just feel like I was like really low energy that whole time. So, first thoughts on this episode?
You know, I think like we were talking about last episode, the YouTube comments were a little negative. Yeah. People haven't been crazy about this season, and I felt during this episode that maybe this could turn some people around a little bit. I thought it was a good episode. I thought, you know, at the heart of this show is the relationship between Bill and Virginia, and I think one of the reasons why this season has been a little different is because that relationship has been strained, and in this episode we got to see a little bit of that kind of connection between them that we've kind of grown to love.
I could see part of that. I personally wasn't that big a fan of this particular episode. I feel like a lot of people think the show has kind of jumped the shark, and throughout this episode, that was kind of in the back of my head, and I was thinking, well, why do they feel that way? And I think I kind of concluded because everything's just kind of a disaster for Virginia and Bill, and seeing Bill kind of just completely spiral out of control. Seeing Virginia,
so much angst this season. Really,
I feel like I've lost a lot of sympathy for Virginia as well, and for Bill. I just don't. Like I said, I don't care as much about them anymore as I do about the supporting characters.
Totally understand.
So maybe that could be playing into it. Why it just doesn't seem to be as great as it was.
You know, a couple of weird plot points kind of coming in and getting really stagnant, and we're kind of wondering, you know, well, why?
Yeah.
Why even bring it up? You know, and I know we've talked a lot about, you know, Virginia's baby who came into the picture and we haven't seen. And I understand the reason why they had her have this baby was to separate the character Lizzy Caplan is portraying further from the actual woman, Virginia Johnson's, which is, you know, basically why they had her have this child. But it's like, then at least serve
Use
that a
the
little
child.
better. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's odd.
And just to have her get married and then really not really, it comes up only in discussion, but you never hear from, oh my gosh, what is his name?
I don't even know. George?
We never hear from George anymore because it's been that long. So it's frustrating to have these kind of plot points come up so early in the season and to have them kind of wasted away. And
but that's why I was thinking this episode is a little bit better because we got to see Lester, and we got to see Barton, and we got to see Tessa, and so let's just talk about it.
Yeah, let's jump right into Barton and Jonathan and Betty. So how did you feel about that? It was finally kind of Barton being faced with being a gay man in public, and still kind of, you know, he wasn't a gay man in public, but he was interacting with other gay men in public, which he's never done before.
I know. And I was actually like, you know, when the guys came up who were a little bit more flamboyant, you know, a little more overtly gay, and when they were like asking to sit or whatever, I was like a little nervous that Barton was going to be like, you know, no or something. But, you know, he's like, yeah, of course, join us or whatever. And then, you know, when things got, you know, when the fight kind of broke out and he just like took off.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
it was interesting because it kind of brought up this mindset that I hear it from some of my gay friends, it's still prevalent of like, you don't have to be so flamboyant with it, or you don't have to be this about it. Even though they could be in a room full of out gay men, there's still sometimes that kind of stigma to being considered flamboyant.
There really is. It's really interesting. You know, I have, you know, gay friends who will be like, oh, but he's just so gay.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll say that about each other, being like, he's just so, you know, he's so, and like, you know.
It's too much.
It's really interesting because sexuality is a spectrum. It goes up and down, you know what I mean? And it's just, some people are here and some people are here, and, you know, it's just a part of the times, you know, you know, where we are, the 60s or whatever, and just like, you just didn't see that, you know?
Yeah, but you kind of see like the seed for that mindset it's as people have it
like
now.
Like the Stonewall is kind of reminding me, wasn't that in the 60s?
The Stonewall was in the 70s.
Oh, okay. So this is the beginning of that, you know what I mean? And the aggression and the anger and like, you know.
Of being out and proud. But just with in terms of how Barton kind of reacted to it, you know, being a closeted man, his response to being faced with out gay men, in contrast to like how Jonathan is when he's interacting with Jonathan. Jonathan is an out gay man, but he's not considered a flamboyant gay man.
Yeah.
And he felt comfortable with that. But the moment that it's faced, like, you know, this is who we are, and this is
exactly
how we, like, some people behave, and
where
it shouldn't
not
matter.
like a is he, isn't he? It's like a no, he is. I was thinking about Libby and how she kind of was like, you know, she's having her 40th birthday and she's like, I don't want to live the rest of my life not getting to be happy and stuff like that. And Barton, as like an older gay man, it's like I keep wanting him to also come to the same conclusion, just being like, I want to live the rest of my years myself, who I am, and be happy with that and stuff like that. And I keep waiting for him to have this kind of wait for the lights to go on there, but it just doesn't seem to happen.
Well, I think Jonathan's going to be a really good catalyst for that. Yeah. I really liked his response of just saying, but this is who we are, and he's like, I'm not like my friends, but that doesn't mean that I'm not a gay man. Yeah. And he's like, and it's you and your generation that makes it so much harder for us. And to have that scene between Barton and Betty at the end, where Betty kind of confesses, like, I struggled as you have struggled as well, and having someone in my life who could reflect a positive viewpoint of me really helped. So hopefully that kind of is that little spark in Barton.
I think that was a really important conversation for him to have, because he doesn't spend a whole lot of time with other well-adjusted, happy homosexual people. Yeah, you know.
And I was so grateful for Betty to finally have a really good monologue with somebody who would listen to her. You know, so much of her interactions this season have been with, if not with Helen, who already loves her, or with Austin, who is Austin, have been with Bill, and he's not somebody who hears people. You know, it's so much about him. It's so much about what he wants and being selfish. And so it was nice to finally have Betty, like, get through to someone.
And also just to be able to be just honest and just say what you think. No more closed captioning, you know, saying one thing but really meaning another. Just like an honest conversation, you know what I mean? And she's Betty, and that's what she does. And so I think it was like a nice palate cleanser for us.
Yeah, and to be so forthcoming with like, I really want to be in my child's life from beginning, not like hidden in the shadows. It was really great to hear. I hope we get more of that next episode in terms of Betty and Helen. But jumping into, just to kind of springboard off of that, Tessa and Matt.
Interesting. How do you feel about Matt right now?
I still don't like Matt.
No, of course not.
He is scummy little. I mean, he's not. I
almost feel like him saying "I love her" was like manipulative. Like, I almost feel like I don't know. Does this kid even know what love is? You fucking like forced her to. Yeah. It's like it's really frustrating.
It's a delicate situation, because at the same time, no, I do not like Matt. I don't like Matt because of what he did to Tessa. But at the same time, we kind of talked about that when it first happened, which was like
forever
8 episodes ago.
Literally, hi, Tessa. So nice to see you again.
So great to see you again. Not really, but I mean, glad to see that you're still kind of an idiot.
God, the angst.
It's just too much.
Anytime there's angst in an episode and then you see Tessa, it's like,
I just kind of want her to just really have a moment. I was hoping that moment would happen with her and Virginia.
Still hasn't.
But before we get into Virginia and that, it does kind of touch on the fact that Matt loves Tessa and is being portrayed as like a decent guy. It touches on that kind of
him a little bit.
Yeah, and I understand why they're doing that because it is kind of a mentality, and it is a very interesting way to show like how rape culture is perpetuated.
And
so
also, if he was a total douchebag and if he was just the worst person ever, then we'd all be looking at Tessa like, then this is on you. You know what I mean? Like, if he's not a good guy,
I don't think that.
Well, no, I mean, but you know, Tessa. I just feel like we have to understand why she likes him, or else then we don't. Then you know what I mean. We have to be like emotionally invested in why she likes him, or else then it's just like, well, then you're just.
I still don't really see why she likes him. He doesn't seem to be as smart or witty as she is.
No, not at all.
But I will say, just to jump back for a second, what I meant by like perpetuating like the rape culture, it's not all. Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this. It's not all like on the male perspective of perpetuating rape culture. You know, the very fact that this is not a conversation that Tessa has had with her mom, that it's not something that's really come up in their lives is something that is wrong, that her grandmother kind of perpetuates this whole mindset of being in the service of a man, being
exactly,
you know, painting your face in a certain way, having your hair done in a certain way, in the service of a man. That's part of it. And then also, how does that affect someone like Matt, who's just growing up in that world, who does perceive his girlfriend as a sexual being, and she is a sexual being, but perceives her as a sexual being in the service of him, essentially.
Right, and also, like, you know, his view of her is a little warped through what her mother does.
It's warped, but from what her mother does, but it's also warped from that time. Just like, you know, I was very touched by the fact that Dan said, you should listen to her. Yeah. You should be concerned with her feelings,
almost like
how she's going to feel about it.
Almost like he knew. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, that was really.
And I just wanted to say, like, where was this conversation 7 episodes ago?
That's what
it didn't have to be there when it happened, but why wasn't it sooner?
Last week about how frustrating it is when, you know, you're going on a 4th, 5th, you know, 6th episode in a season where you're having a problem that could have been solved with a conversation weeks ago. And that's when it gets a little bit tiring as a viewer.
Well, now it seems to me like they're just kind of circling around it. Like, they're still not going to touch on it. They're still not going to address it.
For a show about sex, we don't. This is, you know, in Bill's study with his whole book and everything. Like, has Bill ever said the word rape?
No.
You know,
I don't think. I think Virginia kind of alluded to it the first episode. Okay. During that interview, when then it was discovered that she was pregnant. Okay. But they haven't really touched on rape, and it doesn't seem like it's something that Bill or Virginia would be afraid to touch on. It seems like it's something that the writers of Masters of Sex are afraid to touch on.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, they did this really big thing and then didn't know what to do with it, and so they just kind of like backtracked, and now Matt's this really great guy. And I'm not saying that Matt isn't a great guy, but that has to be addressed in a way, okay, of like, well, then what is it about the culture he lives in or what he's learned from his family or whoever?
Because we haven't really seen any of that.
Yeah.
So maybe we will, you know what I mean?
I hope so.
Maybe we'll meet his dad, and his dad is like
I doubt they're going to go that deep with it. But
redneck, you know, asshole. I don't know.
I think that's making it too easy. If they go in that direction,
yeah,
then it's too
we're like,
easy.
oh, then we really can't hate him at all.
Yeah.
And I think that we kind of, we have to hate Matt. We have to.
I don't think we have to hate Matt. I think it's fine to not hate Matt. It's just that they need to touch on the complications
through all the stuff
of that.
today, even like watching him with Tessa and watching him say like, I love her and stuff like that. In the back of my mind, I was like, but don't forget.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, but don't forget what he did.
Yeah.
That was wrong. But there's also because I'm in a storytelling group, and we were talking about this through one of the stories of how.
My mom's calling me.
Oh, no. Ignore. It can't just be all on the women to say, like, well, this is what we need to address, and we need to punish these men every single time. It has to be a discussion, which is a very scary discussion to have, of like, why do you think that's okay? What about you thinks that the way you treated Tessa was justified and that she wanted it? Like, why do you think that the response to a woman saying she's been raped was she wanted it? Like, why do you think that that's the proper thing to say to someone? So I think if they touch on that, if they're 10 times savvier than they have shown themselves to be in the writing room, then that's a show I want to see, because then it's not making Matt into a monster, because he's not a monster. What he did was very wrong. Yeah. But I don't think he even realizes the weight of what he did.
No, definitely, definitely
and that's something
not.
That should be addressed and discussed.
I mean, even in the time, even in that episode when it was happening, it wasn't even like this coming from this place of anger. You know, it wasn't like this, like, it was just wrong. Yeah. It was just like a complete misread of a situation. Yeah. And you know, and that's when we're watching this episode, and they are humanizing him a little bit. It's just like,
but the thing is that he is human. Like,
yeah, I know, and it's just the times. It's just like this, you know, this instead of, you know, this culture, and even now that we have, instead of teaching, you know, up until like a couple of years ago, we're teaching girls, you know, be careful when you're walking home. We're just now starting to say don't rape, as opposed to men, as opposed to don't get raped to girls. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's still a conversation. That's, you know, that's a mindset that we're still shifting.
Yeah, so it's something that I hope that they actually will touch on, and not just kind of gloss over this thing, or just make it like Tessa being a victim. They need to really touch on both sides. Because
if this is Masters of Sex and this is a show about sex, and we're going to bring up rape, then we really need to have this conversation. Yeah. It can't be this like little tiny, rape isn't like this little tiny nugget that you get to throw in like an Easter egg at the end. Yeah. Like, no.
This is not Game of Thrones, okay?
This is not, yeah. or even Outlander that we were talking about before.
But Outlander actually did a much better job of handling rape.
I 100% agree with you than Game of Thrones. 100% agree with you.
All the time.
Anywho.
But touching on that with, it was just kind of...
I just got like so heated.
Television and sexual assault.
Don't rape.
Like, please. No, it's frustrating, and I no longer really care about the dynamic between Tessa and Virginia anymore, because they just will not address it. They're just making Tessa incredibly unlikable. And I don't want to not like Tessa, but making a decision to lose your virginity on your mom's bed in hopes that she will come home and find you is just crass and annoying.
I want one nugget of Tessa that I like. Yeah. There is no part of her that I like.
Not anymore.
I mean, for me, never. Yeah. And you know what? Maybe it's a thing about the actress. I've never been crazy about her, but I know. But like, she's a little bit of a one-trick pony for me, and so it's kind of like, I
only saw her in that orphan film.
I've seen her in a couple things, and it's like when you see her, you go, I know exactly what part she's gonna play, and she does it every time, and that's fine. You know, it's a part that people are writing for, and she can do it, so that's great. But I think I'm having a really hard time liking her, and you know, Bill has this breakdown, and it cuts right back to Virginia right after it. Moping about Tessa, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck.
I think that's the running theme as of late, is that I'm losing my ability to care for a lot of the characters. Yeah. Except for like the characters who probably won't even be around. Like Dan. I just loved how Dan handled that whole situation.
Me too. Dan has been like an MVP.
Right? Wouldn't let Matt leave. He was like, you're going to stay. We're going to wait till your mom gets home. And I felt like Virginia kind of dropped the ball when she got home.
Yeah. I wanted this to be more. Yeah. I wanted this to be what we have been waiting for, the conversation. Yeah. This kind of like rubber cement that is going to seal this, you know, kind of issue.
Writers of sex, quit being writers of masters of sex. Oops. Quit being afraid to address it. Address that crap.
Maybe you know what? I'm gonna stay positive and hope that we're gonna get it. But now we keep getting so close to the conversation, and it ends, and it's
exhausting.
Like,
and
you know what I mean?
Virginia's not gonna do it. Fine. Virginia's going crazy. Give it to Betty. Give it to Dan. Give it to someone else. I don't care. But
Helen, that would be
address
weird.
It. Give it to Helen. Give it to Austin.
I don't know.
Someone talk to Tessa. Someone talk to Tessa. Anyways, on that note, I will say the men that are being introduced into the lives of the women of Masters of Sex, not the men who are already here, but the men who are being introduced, are just MVPs all the way. I think Paul won me over this episode.
And you sneaky writers, you.
Right? Because I was like, oh, and I still think Libby needs some alone time. I'm going to stand my ground. I still think she needs some alone time. But if there was going to be a man introduced into her life, I'm happy it's Paul.
Yeah.
Because the very first scene between them this episode, and I was like, oh, he's trying to wife up. That's lame. He's trying to make her run errands.
Just like go straight from Joy to Libby.
Yeah.
Don't skip a beat.
To just like, all right, pick up the dry cleaning and make sure you grab a sandwich while you're doing that. But if you could also do everything else. And I was like, oh, well, that's lame and that sucks. But great to see you, Paul. And then to have it turn and him like do this whole big surprise and think about her birthday and her involving her children in it. I was like,
it was like so sweet. Just like shut up. We were laughing about how like the play started and like right as it started, like the music swelled.
Right.
Like, these writers were not about to like write this
I'm not
dumb
writing
little
a stupid Rapunzel play.
And I was like, I feel you.
That's understandable. But it's great to see. Especially after Libby confessed why she was having such a difficult time connecting with Paul and what happened with Robert. Robert. I gained a lot more empathy for Libby because I was losing it because she was getting kind of shrill and she was getting kind of
mopey and
just kind of saying like really sexist things about women and where they stand, and I was like, what?
Yeah,
you're so
right.
close to being free.
That's interesting because that was kind of a part of her that got another thing that kind of got brought up in the middle of the season that also
that was kind of making a return,
kind of ceased to
that I thought was going away. And so
interesting.
It's if she were to marry Paul, I want her to do it on her terms. I think if she was talking about how the first 40 of her life, she just didn't feel like she'd done what she wanted to do, wasn't living the life she wanted.
Yeah.
I hope the next 40, even if she does choose to be with Paul, is living her life the way she wants to live it. You know, she doesn't have to be a housewife if she doesn't want to be. She doesn't have to be somebody's wife. She can be Libby. She can have everything she has going for her because she's a very intelligent woman. And have that too. I just hope she doesn't sacrifice one for the other like she did with Bill.
I know. I'm trying to think if there's some kind of parallel to Bill giving her the trip alone.
Well, I think she should still take that trip alone. But
because we were saying that she needs to and everything like that. I was just wondering if if that's just kind of, we keep saying that like the more she has these conversations with Bill that it make it very clear that their relationship is over or that there's nowhere else to go. Yeah. The more she gets pushed to Paul, pushed to leave Bill. You know what I mean? In kind of like these little small ways. Yeah,
I think she was, and Bill kind of does it. I think not even thinking about it, but I think he is kind of pushing her out because he wants Virginia to take her place.
And that was that was obviously obvious in this moment that Bill is ready to put a ring on it.
It was, I think to see him give her that gift and have it be so thoughtful, and then for him to say such a thoughtless thing of like, but you should just go by yourself because, the family is a burden.
And I would ruin it for you.
And I would ruin it like I did last time, which is fair that he ruined a vacation. But you can tell he's not putting any work or effort into the marriage anymore.
Zero.
He did that thing because it was nice.
But he put a lot of effort into this birthday gift, but still couldn't put himself into it. He put all of this into it, but couldn't put himself in.
Yeah, I mean, even making dinner plans on your wife's birthday, not with your wife, like setting up a reservation so you could ask Virginia to dinner. It's frustrating, and I want Libby to get out of that marriage no matter what. Do I think Paul is the best choice? I think he'd be a great father for like the kids and everything. I'm not 100% sure that Libby shouldn't have that time alone. And I was grateful that they added the line of like, I'm willing to wait for however long it takes. Because then it's like, okay, well maybe she can go like do what she needs to do.
And
on
also
her,
it's
on
a
her
delicate
own.
situation.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
very delicate.
It takes a little bit of coercion.
Yeah, and I think Johnny and all the kids would be much better off with Paul as their stepdad.
I agree. It's weird, this show about, I think, since it does take place over quite a few years, it's interesting how long you have people stay in bad situations, stay when they're not happy. You know what
People
I mean?
do it all the time, though.
Exactly. And like as a viewer, you know, I'm 10 episodes in to the season, and I'm like, God, how is she still with him? And I think that's kind of how we're supposed to feel. You know what I mean? That like people do stay in situations so much longer than they're supposed to, and I think the frustration is on purpose.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to be frustrated.
And I think that's kind of even a running theme, like of even with Tessa, kind of staying in a situation she knows she should get out of, but also kind of using that situation to kind of get at her mom. Or Virginia staying in a situation with Bill when she like it's great for her business, but she knows like she really should put down her foot and say, no, this is business, and we don't have that type of relationship, and we're not going to have that type of relationship. But when you think, like, with Libby, even talking about her wedding day, like, that was, 20 years ago, probably? 15 years ago? So, yeah, 15, if she has, like, a 12-year-old son. And so you can spend majority of your life with the wrong person.
You really can.
It's a true story.
Don't do it.
Get out now.
Let's talk about the surrogacy program.
Yes. So the surrogacy program, I was happy they finally showed a woman going through it.
Same.
But I hate this whole storyline. I just want to die. I just want to crash and burn.
It's really weird because, like, I think that both Virginia and Bill think that this program is kind of built on hopes and dreams and not much else. You know, that what it could do potentially is a really wonderful thing, but there's just too many constants, or there's too many variables and no control. There's no constant. And it just feels, it's really weird to watch it because they're making progress, but it's not feasible. So it's a really interesting and frustrating part of the show.
Well, I think that it's interesting to see how, like, even with the situation with Nora, an episode back with her surrogate, that a key component of sexual dysfunction is an intimacy issue. So it's not like you can just throw a stranger into a room with someone and all of a sudden magically the sexual dysfunction is going to be solved. Like, if there's a sexual dysfunction, it's a mental dysfunction usually, and not all the time. I'm not a doctor, but but that's linked to some type of emotional trauma, most likely. So you can't solve that physically without solving the emotional issues.
Yeah, it's a little bit like trying to do it with, stick it together with glue and paper clips.
Yeah,
it's not exactly
that's not how it's going to work.
Yeah, it's not exactly fixing the problem.
There's not you can find the intimacy issue in a couple. Like they can break that down because the couple's already together. They're already working on that. But to just throw two strangers into a room and say, "Touch me here," like it was just like what Lois was saying to Lester. Like, I don't know anything about you. What do you do for a living? And tell me more about yourself. If someone just like wants to get their rocks off, then yeah, by all means, like that makes sense. But I think when it's something where you're associating sex in any type of way with any type of pain or trauma, then that has to be addressed before you can be physical. And they're completely skipping over that part.
Yeah, like we need some therapy sessions.
Yeah. Which is what Virginia's supposed to do, right?
But the idea of it is good, though. You know what I mean? I think that even
it's a great idea in theory.
Bill is coming in here with good intention.
Oh yeah.
So that's why it's kind of a frustrating thing to watch because you're like, but it's just not. Yeah, it's not feasible. This is just not solving a problem. This isn't the way to solve this problem. And that's why when like they're having these little moments of like,
Eureka.
Yeah, that you're kind of like, oh, cool, but also, why are we doing this?
It seems like it's just really a storyline in order to that was leading up to the point where Virginia and Bill would have the scene they had tonight. And you didn't really have to work that hard. Like, it's really not that necessary, and it was really creepy and grossed me out.
Oh, the scene with Virginia and Bill?
Yeah. But
it grossed you out?
It grossed me out because the intentions behind it.
That's what I wrote. I wrote up here, I was like, I can never tell if Bill is doing research for real or if he's just trying to seduce Virginia.
And for some reason, first season when he was having sex with her, it didn't creep me out. More so because I guess I felt like, if nothing else, Virginia was in on it, and Bill wasn't fully aware that he had any feelings. And this time around, I felt Bill is very much aware that what he's doing is manipulating her.
He's got all the feels.
He even had a bloody hallucination about it with his father. So, like, he's intentionally trying to manipulate this to his benefit to get this woman to remember the way they were. And it's like, but you weren't ever really that way.
Do you think that his failures with Virginia romantically are bringing back feelings about his, kind of failure to have a good relationship with his father? Is there...
Maybe.
Maybe he just is failing to connect with people, and that's why that's coming in. Where does Dad fit into this situation?
I think Bill is so rarely out of control. Like, he's drinking a lot.
Yeah.
And that whole situation with Nora. That's if there were ever a moment in Bill's life prior where he felt out of control, where he couldn't fix something, it was probably a relationship with his father.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I could think he could really be connected. But
it always comes back to Dad.
It was random to see the dad. But yeah, daddy issues, right?
Issues.
I didn't particularly care for anything that Bill did this episode.
No.
Except for giving Libby that really nice gift that he kind of shed on.
Yeah, I wanted to give a hand to Michael Sheen for his breakdown.
Yeah.
I feel like we sometimes take Michael Sheen for granted because we know that he's kind of like, the boss.
A great actor.
He's pretty awesome. Yeah. But it was really, really good work after the scene with Nora. I think when Bill is vulnerable, he does wonderful stuff with that. So just wanted to tip a little hat to Michael Sheen.
I think him admitting to really loving Virginia is great, but it also kind of, I don't know, she doesn't love him, and that's another conversation that they need to have. Like, she doesn't love him.
Yeah,
she doesn't reciprocate the feelings.
We got a lot of loose ends.
Yeah, they need to wrap that crap up. At least one of them. There's too many loose ends.
So it's kind of hard to really get to enjoy these moments of, self, discovery.
Yeah.
When there's no light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't get to see. We don't get to enjoy that moment because we know that we're not really tying anything up. We're not really getting a result.
And it's also weird to kind of see this happening between them, knowing the expectation is that these two people are supposed to end up married to each other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, please don't try and do that in the next 2 episodes, or don't even try and do that in the next season, because in no way is Virginia at a place where she could be married
really rushed,
to
wouldn't
Bill.
it?
Yeah, it would be a little horrifying.
I feel because they didn't stay married, did they?
They were married for about 22 years.
But I could almost see, Virginia going into... Because I feel like a lot of Virginia's relationship with Bill has been, this kind of, silent complacency. Where and I feel like that could continue on.
That is kind of what... If you read Masters of Sex, the actual Virginia Johnson does kind of comment on that. Of well, he was there, and it seemed to benefit the work, and the thing is that Bill Masters did leave her for the love of his life that he never got to be with back 50 years prior. So I could see it being a complacency thing. It's just a really maybe or that she could go into the marriage that way and then really fall for him at some point. I don't know. It's just kind of a really.
But I agree with you. I don't
setting up for a really
them,
sad relationship.
I don't want to see them get back together until there's serious fireworks.
I at least want to see the full course of her and Dan's relationship before I see any moves with Bill. And Bill has got to calm down from this breakdown. I know it's rough, dude, to be rejected, but you got to calm down.
And it's also so irritating because it's so hypocritical. It's Bill.
Yeah, he's married to another woman.
I know. I guess in that way he's not sleeping with Libby. the way that Virginia is sleeping with both Bill and Dan.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really have that kind of relationship, but it's just like, it's, dude.
But it shouldn't even matter, because she's not, they don't have any type of commitment. They haven't put any boundaries on the relationship. They haven't had that discussion. So she has every right to do what she wants.
Yes, she does.
Including the fact that she's in a sham marriage. But it's a bit too much.
Yeah.
And then like with Bill and the drinking and the whole scene with Nora, which kudos to you for thinking something was suspect with Nora, because I thought she was okay until this episode.
When she was like
caressing his finger.
Like that,
and then when she met up with Ronald Sturgis at the end, what was that all about? So was she a plant the whole time?
Well, you know, I think that's a definite. I think that, yeah, she's like working with Ronald a little bit. And then in the preview for next week, there's like a policeman and stuff, and I'm thinking like maybe Nora's still underage and Bill just doesn't know how old she is, and I don't know. We'll get to that later.
Maybe.
I just wanted to go back briefly and say how relieving it is to have Dan call Virginia out on knowing about Bill, and finally get to hear Virginia talk about her relationship with Bill, because you know she's been lying for years. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of a nice moment to get to hear her like get to actually say the words. Yeah. You know, so that was good. That's one step forward.
Yeah, Dan's great.
Dan's great.
And he didn't judge her, like, at all.
Because we had some YouTube commenters who were not happy with him.
In what way?
I should look it up. Just being like...
Well, just estimate. Like,
I can't remember the exact thing, but, you know... I'm just saying we might be not the only... We might, you know...
Oh, no, I'm sure some people don't like Dan. I didn't like Dan for a very long time. But I think in terms of what... I think he shows a level of maturity
that we need,
that you don't see a lot on television in a man or a woman,
and especially not on this one, because we're dealing with a bunch of children,
bunch of
angsty children.
How he's handled every situation, how he's been able to talk about. I really do want to hear more about him and his wife. So it'll be nice to see
who is not sick.
Yeah, Judy Greer making an appearance.
My girl.
Week. Yeah, we went to the same college.
Oh, did you? Then
10 years apart.
She's your girl then. But I do love 13 going on 30.
Yes. That's the one.
That's the one.
No, it will be great to hear just how he operates with his marriage, and
so
to kind of get some insight
to see what the relationship is.
To see, but she doesn't seem fazed by it either.
No. So like, I wonder, like what if they were on Facebook, like in an open relationship with.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to see someone who has a very forward way of thinking in this show. Like, I don't even know if Dan and the way he handles things is somebody that exists in real life. Probably not, but the way that he goes about handling things is such a forward movement on this show that you don't get a lot.
Speaking of variables and a control, he gets to be kind of our control, where everything else is the variable.
Everything's out of control. Even though his relationship, to be fair, is with his wife is just kind of not common. But the way he handles it, the way he handles dealing with Tessa, the way he handles Virginia, the way he handles Bill, it's just someone who's aware of people's flaws and forgiving of them, but doesn't let people get away with bullshit.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see what happens there.
So touching on that, shall we go into predictions?
Sure, we can do predictions.
Yeah.
Did we get everything else?
And now,
was there anything else?
AfterBuzz TV.
Yeah, not much.
Was everything Nora?
Yeah.
That was everything. All right. You want to start him?
I was saying earlier that, in the previews, which I hate going off, I hate the, next week on, because I think it's kind of a hashtag spoiler, but I think we're going to see, I think the police are there because of Nora. I'm going to go ahead and put my money on that. Or, I don't know, maybe Bill does end up socking that Ronald kid and then he gets in trouble or something. Because,
that guy, the badge he flashed was FBI. So
FBI.
I don't know what that's
I didn't see that. Anyway,
at least I thought
we'll see. I'm really interested to see what happens with Nora now. If she's kind of spins out of control and starts ruining things. I could see that happening. She seems, a little mentally unstable. When they were like hooking up and she's like, "Say you love me."
Yeah. Did anyone else have that flashback to Swim Fan? Because I was like, what?
I've never seen Swim Fan.
Oh, I'm old. But when Swim Fan is like basic instinct for kitties, basically.
Okay.
And she's like, "We can have sex in the pool. That's okay. Just say you love me."
Is this the one with Denise?
No, that's Wild Things. I think you're thinking more or something. Denise Richards?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Wild Things. But it's I can't remember their names because they don't really act anymore. But
Erica Christensen.
Yes. And that guy.
Erica Christensen just got married.
Oh, yes,
I saw
exactly.
that in the magazine the other day.
She's still an actor. I'm sorry. She was on Parenthood.
Yeah, I like her.
But she's like, "Say you love me. It doesn't mean anything. I just want to hear you say it." And I was like, "Oh God, they're gonna go all swim." Not Basic Instinct, but Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction. Oh, okay.
So that was scary, but I was more afraid of her and the whole Ronald thing.
I totally think that. Yeah, I know. I'm really interested to see what their relationship is. That whole speech he gave about what the word holy means was like super cryptic and weird. It was
Creepy.
super weird. I mean, is it just a pipe dream to keep hoping that we're going to have the conversation with Tessa and Virginia that we've been hoping for?
It might be.
So maybe I should just give up on that.
Well, I guess my prediction is whatever happens in that dinner scene with Dan and the wife might be the catalyst for why Dan ends up stepping out of the picture.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be nice to get a little bit more on Barton. It would be nice to have a little bit more of Alice and Janney to come back and just kind of touch on where she's at.
Yeah, do we know if she's going to be back at all?
I don't know. Probably not. But even to have Barton kind of have a little bit more forward movement, I think after this next episode, they're probably going to do their time jump, like probably by about 5 years. I just have a random
For the
feeling.
last
Episode.
2 episodes. So you think next one will be...
Next one will be just like in the present, and then by at least the end of episode 12, they're going to do a time jump just to kind of catch up on, because I think that's the only way they can get rid of Dan and everything.
Yeah, I think
we're going to get.
Oh, that's right. We have to see Henry.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a really big episode next week. I think it's going to be
that's a big one?
Yeah. I think it's going to be the episode.
Okay.
So I'm really hoping for like, I just want an episode to be over and just like get to take a breath and feel like things kind of somewhat are... I feel like we're in lost territory right now with all the loose ends we have.
Lost.
I know.
I can't even talk about it.
So whatever. I want big conversations. Yeah. I want some character development next episode.
Yes.
I want to see some people make some big moves.
That would be nice. Hopefully, we'll get one thing tied up before the season finale.
Before the season finale.
Anywho, that about sums us up for the AfterBuzz After Show for Masters of Sex. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Miss Adrian Snow. I'm just freaking out. MSADRIANSNOW. Where can they follow you, Quinn?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Quinn Scillian. You can find me on Instagram at Quinstagram, and you can search for me on Vine on the Quinn Bee.
All right, you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next Sunday.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.